The children were laughing, crayons scattered across the floor of Sunny Smiles Daycare. It was an ordinary morning in the small town of Willow Creek, ordinary until Max, the town's beloved German Shepherd 9, began pacing restlessly near the playroom. At first, no one thought much of it. Max often visited the daycare with Officer Daniels, his handler, bringing joy and comfort to the kids. But today, Max wasn't his usual calm self. His ears twitched, his nose pressed against the polished wooden floor, and then he began to scratch. The sound of claws against the floor startled the teachers. Max, what's wrong, boy?" Daniels asked, tugging gently at his leash. But Max wouldn't stop. His growls deepened, his paws working furiously at a particular spot in the middle of the room. Within minutes, the thin wood gave way. The floor splintered, revealing a dark void beneath. The children gasped, huddling together. The room fell silent. Daniels knelt, shining his flashlight into the opening. His eyes widened. "There's a staircase," he whispered. The daycare was evacuated, parents rushing to collect their children. Within hours, officers cordoned off the building. A small team descended the creaking steps beneath the daycare, Max leading the way. The chamber was larger than anyone could have imagined. The air was cold, the walls made of stone, etched with strange markings. In the center sat dusty wooden crates, their lids sealed shut. When Daniels pried one open, the room erupted in gasps. Inside were hundreds of old photographs, letters, and documents, evidence from nearly 60 years ago. They told the story of children who had mysteriously gone missing in Willow Creek during the 1960s, cases that had never been solved. One photograph showed the daycare itself, except it was older, darker, with barred windows. It hadn't always been a daycare. Long before, it had been an orphanage. And not a kind one. As the town gathered to hear the news, elderly residents began to remember. Whispers spread about the cruel headmaster of the orphanage, about rumors of abuse, about the children who disappeared. For decades, those memories had been buried, just like the chamber. But the chamber wasn't only a graveyard of secrets. Deeper inside, investigators found a locked trunk. When they forced it open, they discovered toys, small shoes, and personal belongings of the missing children. Each item told a silent story of a life stolen too soon. The entire town was shaken. Parents clutched their children tighter. Neighbors who had lived in Willow Creek for generations stood in tears, realizing the place they called home had carried a shadow all these years. The investigation wasn't easy. Many resisted reopening old wounds, fearing what else might be uncovered. Some town officials even argued to seal the chamber, afraid the town's reputation would be ruined. Daniels, however, refused to let the truth be buried again. He knew Max hadn't scratched that floor for nothing. He fought against opposition, demanding that the children's stories be honored. There were nights when Daniels couldn't sleep, haunted by the idea of young lives lost and forgotten just beneath the floor where kids now played. He leaned on Max, who seemed to sense his pain, resting his head on Daniel's lap whenever the burden grew heavy. Weeks later, the town held a memorial service for the lost children. Their names, long hidden, were finally spoken aloud. Families who had carried unanswered grief for decades finally had closure. At the center of it all stood Max, wearing a fresh medal around his collar. So, children from the daycare placed flowers around him, calling him their hero. Officer Daniels addressed the crowd, his voice breaking. Sometimes the truth hides in the darkest places, but it only takes one light, or one loyal dog, to bring it out. Max didn't just scratch a floor. He uncovered the truth, and with it, he gave this town something it had been missing for far too long. Peace. The crowd applauded, many in tears. From that day forward, Max wasn't just a 9. He became a symbol of truth, resilience, and hope.